travelled to Singapore for the next round of the Formula 1 season, but before we get into that, we've got a lot of news that has broken out over this past week about the issue with regards to Ewan Wright and the brawl that happened during an annual Ford party. Now, during that, Ewan Wright was arrested for assault during this party in which a massive fight broke out, and of course, Ewan was the main man to be arrested. Now, we found out during that initial case that both Reese, Tom, Sam, Lewis Hamilton, and Sergio Perez all attended this party in terms of key names that actually attended. Now, Sergio Perez has come out of the blue and has accused Reese of being the cause of this brawl. Sergio Perez has come out and he has said that Reese made multiple homophobic remarks towards Ewan Wright. Of course, we didn't know this initially, but now with Sergio Perez actually stating this, it was confirmed that Ewan Wright confirmed that he was indeed gay, and he announced this, privately obviously, and it was confirmed at the start of the year, in which Sergio Perez has now come out and stated that Reese made multiple homophobic comments towards Ewan Wright, which doesn't seem to make any sense, as this is a police investigation. Not quite sure why Sergio Perez believes that he can go out and make these type of accusations. Surely this should have been kept private and let the police investigate it and then let the evidence wind up and then go from there. It's a very strange thing to just come out and say all of a sudden. It could well be true nonetheless though, but it's a very, very strange thing to put out there. Now, no comment has been made from Reese as of yet, so we can't get any news from him whether this is true or whether this is false. However, this is probably not going to go down well with Reese in this circumstance. Now, the FIA are going to announce next week if there is going to be a mid-season regulation change with regards to the battery pack. Now, of course, we do understand that Red Bull were demanding changes to the regulations to allow drivers to have bigger batteries in the cars for enabling more use of ERS, as it is very limited during this current spec of Formula 1 cars. We don't know whether that's going to happen or whether they're going to leave that in the dust. We're going to find all of that out next week, and then we'll get a pure definitive answer, and maybe it'll help Red Bull, maybe it'll completely hinder them, depending on the route that they actually wanted to go down. And finally, with going back to the Sergio Perez accusation, the media does seem to question, though, Perez's accusations. They have come completely out of the blue, and in the initial statement with regards to the arrest of Ewan Wright, there was nothing that stated anything with regards to any comments made which triggered such a spike in the brawl there for Ewan to go out on. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. I presume we'll probably get something very, very soon, especially from Reese, because that is a very, very strong remark to instantly put out there. Now, as we move on into the race news itself, heading into the Singapore Grand Prix, what we saw from practice is that there are no clear-cut fastest cars to be notified of heading into this weekend. It is a complete unknown who is going to be on top in this Singapore Grand Prix, so we're just going to have to wait till qualifying and the race to find out who does come on top. What we can confirm, though, is the race strategy will be key for this race. If you start outside the top 10, as we can see from the text coming in below, you are going to gain a big advantage, as those guys on the one-stop strategy are definitely going to be able to counter to those on the two-stop strategy. So those that are on that two-stop strategy definitely are going to have to get their elbows out if they're going to try and make themselves a name in this Grand Prix. With that being said, Red Bull and Renault hope to score some big points heading into this weekend. Of course, with this strategy being so key and track position being everything and overtaking being that much difficult here at Singapore, it's a great opportunity for those outside the top 10, mainly being the Renaults and even sometimes the Red Bulls, to take advantage of this. And the man that has dominated the Singapore Grand Prix for the past few seasons now, Sam, is on the back foot heading into this weekend, with him not being happy at all with the balance of his car, and he feels like it's going to be one of those weekends where he's going to struggle massively. So we'll have to wait and see if he can put it all to bed and take the victory again at the Singapore Grand Prix, or whether we'll see someone else take the victory. Let's get straight into qualifying and the race for round number 5 of the season. It's the Singapore Grand Prix. Yo, what's going on, guys? It is Foxydude here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 Journey for you guys today here on the channel. Today, we are here for the 5th round of the season at the Singapore Grand Prix, and it is a track that traditionally in the F1 Journey series, we've not really been that strong at. So let's see if we can try and be as good as we possibly can, basically. But as you can see now then, let's go for our first qualifying lap here. So we come around the last corner, and we go ahead and set a lap time to go P1. But that's instantly transformed down to P2 as we lose that in terms of time. But obviously, we always set a better lap on our second lap. And this is our second lap then, so let's ride on board and see how we get along then. So round the last corner we go. Let's go for a lap in the Singapore street circuit in these super quick cars then. So let's get on with it then. In towards the first corner, we actually broke a little bit too late into turn 1. We went deep into the apex. That compromises your run through turns 1 and 2. And we lose around about a tenth of a second, 2 tenths actually. We've lost out. But now as we go in towards turn 3 here, we actually gain all that time back by taking a much more curb. Last time around, I actually lost a bit. Again, going too wide on the apex. So that time around, we actually nullified the gap difference that we lost into turn 1. So we're up by about 5/100ths of a second now as we go through in towards the end of the first sector. Now towards the middle sector of the circuit. Very difficult, complex corners to get right here. We go and clip that curb very nice there. And now we're up by about 6/100ths of a second. But this section here is where all that time is going to be gained as we fly on through now. Breaking nice and late through here. Getting this complex of corners absolutely spot on. And now we're up by nearly 3/10ths of a second now. So we're finding a lot of time now on our flying lap here as we go down the back straight and open up the DRS for a third time now. And we're up by about 4/10ths of a second. It's a purple middle sector now as we go through towards here. That's another half a second now. We nearly just about found her as we're now blasting through this next complex of corners. And watch the delta just fly up even more. Look at it go. Half a second. Nearly 8/10ths up now on our best lap time from the session. So we're really motoring now, finding all of the time as we literally nailing every corner, every complex. All the apexes there. Apart from that one, a little bit deep into the corner there. That unsettles the car ever so slightly. But it's going to be around the last corner. Keeping the car flat out, upshifting into 8th for pole position for the Singapore Grand Prix. Here we go then, it is round number 5 of the season for the Singapore Grand Prix, and we are of course counting down to 100 F1 Journey races, which I believe will be halfway through next season. We would have hit 100 F1 Journey races, but the countdown is more or less on. It is a dry but extremely humid day here in Singapore, with the soft tyres being around about 6 cents per lap faster than the mediums, and about 1.2 seconds quicker than the hard compound tyres. This 3.146 mile circuit is traditionally not very well known for its overtaking, but by God, it is a bloody phenomenal race circuit, and probably one of my all-time favourites. Probably top 3 I'd put it as. Probably because I've been there, so I'm biased on that front. But when you go there, you kind of understand why it's amazing. But as you can see then, Sam, my teammate here, getting ready to get into the car as he sees that I have claimed pole position for this Grand Prix. And let's have a look at the grid in full, see where everyone lines up then. So let's have a look then. So we're on pole position ahead of Reese in the Ferrari. Last time we were on the front row together was back in round 1 in Bahrain. That time around, Reese managed to take the lead into turn 4. Lewis Hamilton is in P3 ahead of Carlos Sainz in the second Ferrari in P4. Max Verstappen with a sensational qualifying for BMW Red Bull Racing in P5 ahead of Perez. Ricciardo starts the race in 7th ahead of Rosberg, who lines on the grid in 8th place. George Russell starts the race from P9 with Sam, very bad qualifying, all the way down in P10 for Jaguar. Charles Leclerc outside the top 10, but has a great chance in this race as he can start on the medium compound tyres and go that much longer. Mason Wood starts from P12 ahead of the 2 Renault cars of Bottas and Ocon in P13 and 14, with Pascal Wehrlein in P15 and Pierre Gasly in P16. In 17th and 18th is the 2 Aston Martin cars of Sebastian Vettel and Lando Norris together lines up, and we've then got Noah James and Nico Hulkenberg lining up in 19th and 20th on the grid for their respective teams. And that is the full grid order for the Singapore Grand Prix. And for us then, it's going to be a 2-stop race. It's going to be a very overtakey 2-stop race because those guys on the medium compound tyres are going to be going a lot longer in this race, which means this start of the race is critical. So here we go then, 5 red lights, and it's lights out. We go here to start the Grand Prix. It's been a decent start. It's been a mega start for Reese on the second from second on the grid. He goes into the lead into the first corner. Sainz tries to come at us now in towards turn 3. Doesn't work for him though, but Reese in the Ferrari, just like he did against us in Bahrain in the first round of the season, he has snatched the lead off the start there, and it seems like Reese really enjoys qualifying second on the grid because he just takes the lead every time. Now onto the back straight here, down Raffles Boulevard. Sainz now, it's going to have a run at us in towards the Raffles now. Let's see if we can try and make this one stick. We're going to defend that corner quite nicely, get a little bit wide on the exit, but we just about hold on in there, and Reese now takes off into the distance here. Already has a commanding lead in the Ferrari as we now try and chase him down in this phase of the Grand Prix as we blast on through here with Sainz behind us. Hamilton is then also right on our tail with the Red Bull of Verstappen already beginning to drop back in this phase of the race. Verstappen definitely putting his BMW Red Bull Racing well out of position in P5. But of course, that's where he qualified, so you've got to give him the credit for it. But now as we go onto the straight here, and we're closing up to the, or trying to close onto the back of Reese, but look at the performance that he's got already, just flying off into the distance there. I was so happy with my qualifying lap, but once again, it's been completely nullified by, it didn't feel like a bad start, but Reese just launched off that. Obviously, we're going to replay the race starts in a moment, but as we now go through towards the last section of the circuit here, just trying to warm ourselves into the race. And what I don't want to do is I don't want a carbon copy repeat of Bahrain. I don't want to be falling back through the order, struggling for pace, and yeah, just letting Reese just dance off into the distance. That's not what I want to do. What I want to do now is get my head into the game and get on to Reese. Let's have a look at the race start, though, and see what went down. So as we get to the 5 red lights here, if we have a look at the start in general, there's a little bit of wheel spin, obviously, from everyone, but it looked like I just couldn't quite get the initial phase right, and everyone else just flew on through. We took a wide line then to cover off Sainz, because Sainz was actually also a threat going into the first corner. He was actually very nearly overtook us as well as Reese, so we nearly lost out to both of them in that phase of this Grand Prix. But we're going to have a look now in just a second at both the Ferrari starts. And this is Sainz now, when he went for a move on us down in towards Raffles Boulevard here. We just went around the outside, covered it off, and a little bit wide onto the curb there, but we can get away with that one. And we'll press on with our Grand Prix. But here's on board with Reese then. So let's have a look at his start. And you can see here that it was just his initial getaway. Straight from second gear upwards. He got a much better start than we did. And was able to just take turn 1 nice and cleanly. And you can see that we have to drop him behind. Absolutely nothing that we could do about his start there. It was just so much better. Same with Sainz actually. Now Sainz, he actually started in P4. But again, his start was beautiful. And he got alongside us very nicely. But I decided to do a different tactic. I went as far to the outside as I could for turn 1 to allow me to just swoop through the inside of turn 2 and carry more speed to close off turn 3. But back onto the live footage now. And Sergio Perez here is coming under pressure from Sam, my teammate. Now going down towards Raffles Boulevard. He'll go to the outside line to make this one 6. Sam goes around the outside of Perez, but Perez holds on in there quite nicely, actually. And down the inside now, Sam will try and get this one done, but Perez will fight it back a little bit longer, and Sergio stays in front. So Sam then, being frustrated in the middle of this field here, not really able to make any form of impact, but lap 6 of the Grand Prix now, and we're back on board with myself here, and what has been promising in this first stint, despite losing the lead to Reese. You can see, there he is. He's right there. We're not losing track with Reese. In fact, we are ever so slowly closing the gap on him. And Sainz, we've dropped him completely. But Reese carries on for another lap. And I decided to box this lap and get my medium compound tyres on straight away. Now, Lewis Hamilton pitted a lap earlier. And he actually rejoined in quite decent clean air. And my fear was that the undercut was going to be bloody powerful. So I decided to get myself in, get a fresh set of tyres on, and we go again. So as we come out of the pits now here, onto a brand new set of the yellow striped medium compound tyres, we're going to now see where we rejoin in all of the act. And you can see very slow pit lane here at Singapore, but we managed to get through, and we've got a very nice bit of clean air to work with, which is absolutely beautiful. You don't really get that often around Singapore, but we go on through now, and that is us through, and we're back into our standard position, and that's Lewis Hamilton there. That gap has closed quite a lot, and Sainz, you can see there, look, is so much further behind Lewis Hamilton on the mini-map that the undercut has been absolutely huge. So can we make it work now on Reese potentially? So as we go in towards the first corner, that's Reese coming out of the pit lane now. We're going through towards turn 1. This is going to be very close now, but in towards turn 3, the undercut has worked beautifully on Reese there. It's a massive advantage that we gain by doing the undercut, and we are through into a net P1 now, back in front of Reese in the Singapore Grand Prix. That is exactly what we wanted, and now it's a three-way fight in this race, going up from the flag. Now, myself is going to be taking on Reese and Lewis Hamilton in this Grand Prix. Also, everyone that's on the one-stop strategy we have to fight, because as we're fighting these guys now, the Aston Martins, the likes of the Renault and the McLaren are exiting Raffles Boulevard. They've got this entire straight clear distance of us, and we've got overtaking to do. So let's crack on with the overtaking, shall we? First up is going to be this Aston Martin car. I think it is Lando Norris, but I could be incorrect on that front. No, I'm not. I'm right. So yeah, we get past Lando Norris. Nicely done. And automatically, that's a car in between myself and also Reese. Beautiful. Fastest first sector of the race so far, and we have got a yellow flag actually, so someone's out of the race in towards Raffles Boulevard. We've got a virtual safety car that's had to come out for that, and it is because of Carlos Sainz. So in the other Ferrari, it's a disaster for him, and he is out of the Grand Prix then. Sainz pulls over to the side of the circuit, and that's a very big shame for him, but you can see there how far back some of the other drivers are, that they're only just passing Sainz into Raffles, so yeah, pretty bad that one. The DSC though is ending here. I got caught out just trying to do a lot of that braking and upshifting versus the Ford car here. Having to be careful now because I've got not enough speed in towards this straight, but luckily this straight is short enough that I'm alright with that. Now in towards turn 2 here, setting myself up for a switchback here on the Ford car of Noah James. Now we're going to try and go for it here, losing a little bit of pace now versus Noah, but we go around the outside of Noah, and a beautiful move there versus myself and him. I do have to just solidify it a little bit, but with the DRS enabled, we can fly on through. Now Reese there, trying to have a go at Lando Norris down Raffles Boulevard, but it's not going to work. Reese is stuck behind Norris for a little bit longer, and all that time is just giving me more and more time myself to go ahead and get past these cars and build up that gap to myself, Reese and Hamilton. That's the aim for us at the moment. Now we're trying to chase down the Ford of Gasly here, having a little look at Gasly in towards the Singapore sling. And now as we go through and towards the bridge section here, this is a very nice run through here. Great exit off that corner, and now we've got a very good run here to go down the inside of Gasly into the hairpin, and that's a lovely move now past the Ford driver. And in fact, Reese has actually got past Lando Norris somewhere, so when he just got blocked off by Lando, he's actually passed him. I'm not sure where he did that, but he's done it, and we're going to go close into the wall there if we're not careful, but we just about survive. And we can now chase up to the back of the Porsche car of, I believe, this is Hulkenberg, I want to say. But I could be wrong. Of course, Porsche haven't really been performing that well this season, although there has been speculation in the paddock that they have got something big on the way, which should help them propel up the order a little bit. We'll have to see if that works out for them or whether they'll just continue to slump. But as you can see now, we're flying through the last 2 corners now, opening up our DRS here, and now Reese there is actually going to get past the Ford car of Noah James. We go down the inside of Hulkenberg in fine style. Reese, meanwhile, has just got past Noah in the Ford, so he can, yeah, it is Noah in the Ford. Now he can chase after Gasly, so now he's actually starting to put a little bit of advantage between himself and Hamilton. There is Lewis, who's actually got past Lando. I think Lando's actually pitted for his first stop of the Grand Prix. And Reese now is having a look, but it's not quite going to work out for him. But just onto the end of this next lap here, Reese is actually going to get a bit bored of trying to go for it on a DRS straight. He's going to go for it to the last corner. That was a really nice move, actually, from Reese. Fair play for doing that. And Lewis Hamilton now is going to come through on the Ford car of Noah, and he's going to make that move stick nice and easily for him, as the rest of the pack there are all closing up on us now. The likes of the Audis, there's the Red Bull McLaren, they're all starting to come back into fight here, so that's a little bit fascinating. They've really gained a hell of a lot of time on us at this stage, but Reese now is going to get past Nico Hulkenberg, goes around the outside of Raffles Boulevard, lovely overtake there, that's him out of the way, and he can now continue to try and pursue me down, I guess. But as you can see now, Lewis Hamilton here is also going to get past Pierre Gasly, round the outside of turn 1, carry the speed through into 2 and 3. Job done. Next up for Gasly to defend is going to be Sergio Perez. Good luck with that. Have fun. You're probably going to get absolutely slaughtered. But back with us now, lap 12 of the Grand Prix, and we're closing up to the second Aston Martin car, I believe this is, of Sebastian Vettel. That is correct. Now we're going to try and chase down Seb and see what we can do again. Setting ourselves up in towards turn 2 to get a better exit through turn 3. We do just that there. Vettel actually pulls away ever so slightly through here, but now to take our gingerly time through here, we can now open up the ERS, DRS, rich mixture, all of the lots, every single juices that is possible. Very close there between ourselves for a little bit of contact, but now as we swoop down the outside, break nice and late into Raffles Boulevard. Job done. Next up is Ocon, and then Pascal Wehrlein in the second Porsche car, so making some great progress. But the biggest issue that we've got is where we're fighting with. The top 2, you can see them on the minimap actually, they're going onto the third DRS straight right now, halfway through it. They're a really long way clear at this stage of the Grand Prix, and a little bit uncomfortable for my liking. I really need to get this back now, but we're going to do a beautiful move here around the outside of Ocon into the hairpin, just completely mug him right off there, setting ourselves up beautifully. And I've said it all season long, I love making moves around the outside of cars on this in this car, because obviously with this mod that I've put into place, the cars are just so much better just in terms of corner speed, that making moves around the outside can be easier. Now we're trying to find our way past Pascal Wehrlein, getting a little bit annoyed here getting, oh, you can see there that we're just trying to just find a way to set ourselves up. Not going to work for us though. Had to take a second bite of the steering there for that last corner. Otherwise I was going to get a corner cut warning. I think I got a corner cut penalty actually in this race, but we get a fantastic run through the last corner. Easy move there. A little bit of a jiggle of the steering wheel as Pascal tries to fend us off, but that's not how we should be doing it, Tom. Come on now. We actually go a little bit too deep into the first corner, and we have to take the escape road there and actually back off. I don't want to re-overtake him into this corner, so we're going to set ourselves up for a run on the DRS straight there. A little bit clumsy, that move by myself, but now we're going to eventually press on with this one here. You can see we've got the DRS open. Now we're going to go to the outside line. This time around, though, we are going to make the move stick, brake nice and decently into the corner, and that's us through. And now Reese will have to try and overtake Pascal Verline, and you can leave me to do my own thing, because, you know, that's what I like to do. So, as we go through now, we've now got to try and wither down that gap between myself and the top two in the Grand Prix. But lap 18 of the Grand Prix, we're now coming in for our final stop of the Grand Prix for another set of the medium compound tyres for what is effectively the chase stint of the Grand Prix. Reese stays out for another lap, which is fine. So we are going to get an undercut once again on Reese, meaning that gap is going to go back up. But we now need to do the chase piece. We obviously did as much laps as we could on those mediums in some clean air. Now we need to try and make sure that when we come out of the pits, there goes the McLaren and the Renault car in front. We now need to close them down. That gap is going to be around about 7 or 8 seconds. That's not actually too difficult considering we're on fresh medium compound tyres in these type of cars, which if you're on fresh tyres, as you would have seen, can gain about a second or two per lap. So we now need to just wither down the gap and get on with it. So let's press onwards now on these medium compound tyres and fly through up the order. So as we breeze now onto the straight here, and we're going to take ourselves on board with a lap here and see what we can do to those two drivers. And we just need to keep monitoring the gap ever so slightly and make sure that we're in good nick. But these medium compound tyres will be absolutely rapid, and I think we're probably, yeah, around about 8 seconds, I'd say, behind. Around about that type of margin to them. So if we could just stick in range now as we go in towards the Singapore Sling here, going to absolutely attack this corner, but attack it too much. And that's what can happen in a heartbeat there. We attack the Singapore Sling. We're out of the Grand Prix after such a great race so far. We just got it all wrong there. We just go in towards the corner and just smash into the wall, taking too much out of the car. And that is the race over. And yeah, I don't really know what to say. That was awful. In the end, though, Reese wins the Singapore Grand Prix. It's a very abrupt ending, but we just had so much more grip on those new tyres that I completely underestimated how much I needed the steering. You actually saw that I tried to back out of the steering because I knew I'd taken too much steering angle into the corner, but it was too much. So annoyingly, that's race over, but Reese managed to win the Singapore Grand Prix for Ferrari. He wins ahead of Valtteri Bottas in the Renault car. So Renault getting their first points of the season, and their first points equals a first podium this season. Charles Leclerc finishes in P3 for McLaren. Again, he starts in P11 and he gets a podium for McLaren. Verstappen finishes in P4 for Red Bull, ahead of Sam in P5 for Jaguar. Nico Rosberg finishes in front of his teammate Hamilton in the Mercedes-Benz cars with Mason Wood in P8. George Russell finishes the race in 9th place. Not a good race for Audi, actually. Only George picking up points, and that's only 2. And Ocon also did manage to get himself a point in the second Renault car. So congratulations to Renault on their first points of the season. It's their first double points of the season and their first podium. Verstappen got the fast lap of the race, actually, with a 1 minute 30.430. And as we look at the second half of the table, Daniel Ricciardo all the way down in P11 for McLaren. Not a great race for him at all. Sergio Perez in P12 for the second Audi car, ahead of both Fords of Gasly and Noah James. Vettel finishes in P15, ahead of Pascal Verline in P16. Lando Norris finishes in 17th place, ahead of Nico Hülkenberg. And then unfortunately, we do indeed DNF from the Grand Prix in P19, and so too did Carlos Sainz. Now, how has that impacted the Drivers' Championship? Well, Reese now leads the Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship for Ferrari. He leads. He is on 67 points, ahead of Sam, who is on 62 points. We are now in 3rd place on 55 points and are dropping back a little bit in the championship race. But crucially for us, though, the gap is still very, very small. That gap to myself and Reese is just 12 points. That's all it is. So it's really, really small in the championship. Ricciardo, P4 for McLaren. He also didn't score points today, actually, but he still remains in P4 on 52 points, ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who is on 50 points. The top 5 are separated by just 17 points. George Russell is 20 points behind Reese in P6 on 47 points, ahead of Charles Leclerc, who's on 40 points, really helping himself after his podium today. Sainz on 37, ahead of Nico Rosberg, who's on 30 points, and Perez, who's on 22 points. Next up is going to be the Vietnam Grand Prix. In the Constructors' Championship, Jaguars still lead the championship, but Ferrari do close that gap. It's down to 104 points now, with McLaren on 92 points, getting close to themselves. Mercedes are now in front of Audi. They're on 83 points. Audi are on 69 points, unless Mercedes were in front of them before. Can't really remember. Red Bull Racing are now on 26 points, but they have a little bit of a problem on their hands, and that is Renault. Renault have now got their first points of the season and are up to 19 points, which is a hefty amount. If they can try and score some more points frequently, they might just cause BMW Red Bull Racing a couple of problems, with Ford, Porsche and Aston Martin yet to score points. With that being said and done, let's get straight into the post-race notebook to see what the teams and drivers had to say after that Singapore Grand Prix. Taking a look then at the post-race notebook, and this is what the teams and drivers had to say after that chaotic Grand Prix. Well, Reese managed to win the Singapore Grand Prix after Tom crashed out of the race, in which Tom actually blames himself for this stupid mistake after getting a brand new set of medium compound tyres and turning in too early and also braking too early for the Singapore sling, meant that even when he turned out of the steering, he'd already put too much into it, that it was too late to correct the mistake. Reese's win, though, does mean that it is now 5 different winners in the first 5 races of this Formula 1 season, making it extremely tight and competitive. And Ferrari have claimed their first win in nearly 2 years now. You have to go back 2 years, well, just under 2 years ago, to Fernando Alonso at the Austrian Grand Prix when he managed to take the race victory then. Renault are celebrating their best result of the season so far, with Valtteri Bottas managing to claim 2nd place at the Singapore Grand Prix, grabbing them a podium, and Esteban Ocon managed to get himself into the top 10 and finishing in P10, giving them a massive 19 points over the course of this race weekend. Now, Charles Leclerc, despite starting from P11 and finishing in P3 in this Grand Prix, was still unhappy with his race pace. He felt like he had more to offer and wasn't able to extract as much as he could have out of that McLaren. He felt that if he could have done so and maybe had some setup changes and just maybe got the balance right, he thinks that he would have been able to have held off any form of attack from Reese and managed to win the Grand Prix. But alas, he finished behind the Renault of Bottas as well. But that is it then for this Singapore Grand Prix. Next time around, we're going to a brand new circuit where we're heading for the Vietnam Grand Prix. Are we about to see our 6th different winner in the first 6 races, or is one of the first 5 drivers about to win their 2nd Grand Prix and end the streak? We'll have to find out when we head over to Vietnam next time round. Take care all.